Colorado just secured a statement win. Are they now Big 12 contenders?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Joining me today, Scott Procter, the one, the only. He's here every week, and we bother him every week. And today, we got some great topics to talk about, Scott, because as you know, you were there in the heat / the rain / the whatever that weather was in Florida, which shout out to the people who are currently suffering from the effects of Hurricane Helen. We hope all is well with you guys and that everything clears up over there. But Scott, you were in Orlando to see what was a beatdown by the Buffs, quite frankly. They beat the UCF Knights down by 27 points. The game wasn't really that close at all. I think UCF scored a touchdown per quarter for the first three quarters, while Colorado was just laying it on them. I wanted to compliment Coach Prime for his first half game management at the end there. I think that's the best instance of game management I've seen from him during his time in Colorado, getting them those extra 3 points, right? Like that was unheard of, you know? I think Colorado last year probably throws a couple deep passes and hopes for the best. And who knows if it actually works out. But they got the points, went up big at the halftime, went up big at half. So the big question now is, are they Big 12 contenders? So you kind of look at where they are in the Big 12 standings, and they're at the top, tied for the best record in the conference with, I believe it was, let me confirm. Yeah, with BYU, as we all expected, the highest ranked team in the Big 12 right now, as we all expected would happen, right, Scott? Them and Iowa State, 16 Iowa State, BYU 17. And Colorado is looking really, really good, but are they Big 12 contenders? Make me a case for yes, because I feel like we both agree that they're at least in the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to say that they're Big 10 contenders based on what we've seen through 5 or so weeks of this college football season, right? And I guess my question, I could pose is, who's the favorite in the Big 12?
Right. It was Utah.
It was Utah, right? But we haven't seen their starting quarterback play a game in at least 2 to 3 weeks, right? Then obviously Zach Wilson, who's come in for him. Excuse me. Zach Wilson's a little bro. Isaac Wilson. Isaac Wilson, Utah's starting quarterback at the moment is a young guy, an unproven guy, albeit talented. And that's kind of what you see when you look around the Big 12 is a bunch of uncertainty and a bunch of unknowns. You know, obviously Oklahoma State was projected to be one of the top teams in the Big 12 this season, but they have suffered back-to-back bruising losses, tough losses. And then obviously you look at Kansas State, who probably to me at this point probably looks like the favorite, the best team in the Big 12. And I thought they'd be a top 3 team in the conference, heading into the season. But as you know, Colorado gets them right in week 7 at home out of the bye, with both teams coming out of a week 6 bye. So that game is going to be absolutely fascinating. And if the Buffs find a way to beat Kansas State at home on October 12th in Folsom Field, they'll certainly not only be a contender, but I think they'll be a popular pick to go ahead and at least make an appearance in the Big 12 championship game, which is certainly on the table. When you look at it again, this is what it's come down to, right? Colorado has the best quarterback arguably in college football, right? They have arguably the best overall player in college football in Travis Hunter. So when you add in what has been added around those guys, right, an improved offensive line, Pat Shurmur finally getting the run game going these last couple of weeks, getting Dallin Hayden back, the Ohio State transfer running back last week was huge. He gets his first touchdown as above. Michael Welch punches it in. The freshman running back gets a touchdown for the second straight week, his third rushing touchdown in 2 weeks. And Isaiah Gusta quietly is the leading rusher on this team through 5 games, the Arkansas transfer, who has really showed some real flashes of explosiveness this season. So that's the offensive side of the ball, which we knew would be good. But defensively is where this team has taken the biggest leap. And it's the biggest reason why I think this team is a legitimate Big 12 contender, is because this defense, particularly in the second half of games, has been locked down. This Colorado defense has not allowed more than 7 points in the second half of a game all season. And again, we're not we're not at a point where you can say, well, it's a small sample size. It's only been a couple games against some weaker opponents. We're 5 weeks, 5 games into the college football season now. So this is no longer a small sample size. This defense is legit. They've gotten to the ball. They've gotten some turnovers. Obviously, the Preston Hodge interception on UCF's first drive of the game on Saturday was arguably the biggest play of the entire game. It just the momentum after Deion Sanders threw an opening drive interception. Defense is getting takeaways. The defense is getting to the quarterback. And Robert Livingston, Colorado defensive coordinator, has this defense flying around, playing some really good football. So to answer your question, Colorado is absolutely a Big 12 contender. And that's something that most people in the college football world were not willing or ready or prepared to say before the season started.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Scott. I think they are, in fact, Big 12 contenders just based on how much they've improved, right? I think there's a couple things that work in their favor, right? The offense, which I played a video yesterday, said yesterday like 7 times there, during the previous episode, right? And UCF's defensive coordinator was like, yeah, Colorado went from no tight ends 80% of the time to all of a sudden they were in 11 personnel 67 or 65% of the time. I forgot what the number was during that game on Saturday, right? So Pat Shurmur is definitely getting in his bag a little bit and mixing things up, which I think I talked about yesterday as well. 2 of Shedeur Sanders' touchdown passes came on play action passes, right? Teams are starting to value and respect the run from Colorado. And so I like what we're seeing from the offense. Defensively, they have a top 5 red zone defense in college football. Now, their total defense ranking isn't anything special, but when you get into the red zone, Colorado isn't letting people into the end zone, which is the money zone, as some people call it, right? Like they are keeping teams out of the end zone, which is a big deal. So improvement there. Special teams wasn't detrimental. They were actually a net positive there. Mata hit a very clutch and I think somewhat deep field goal for his range. I believe it was around 45-ish yards.
46, I believe,
yeah. 46 yards at the end of the half there. So that was a complete game. Deion Sanders said it on the nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco, among other things. Among Michelle-related topics, they were talking about how that was the most complete game that Colorado has played during his time there. I couldn't agree more. And then you just look at, which you don't want to base everything off the analytics and the FPIs and all this of the world, but we're going to use it as a reference point right now. Colorado is currently ranked, according to ESPN's FPI, as the second best team in the Big 12. They rank 28th in the country, only behind Iowa State, who's 22nd. Colorado now has a 95% chance of reaching 6 wins, which would obviously get them to that bowl game threshold. They have a 15.7% chance to win the conference, which is the second best chance in the Big 12. And then you just look at who they have left on the schedule. The Big 12 isn't what we thought it was going to be. I think we always knew that it wasn't the same as the Pac-12, but there was teams like Kansas State, you mentioned, who at the beginning of the year was like, oh, they should be really good. Utah, same thing. Texas Tech, same thing. We don't really know what Texas Tech is. UCF was kind of a dark horse team. Oklahoma State is on the outside looking in. Kansas, they are terrible. They're 1-4, and I think Jalen Daniels is a shell of his former self. So Colorado's difficult schedule down the stretch is now looking like, hey, this could be quite manageable.
100%. And the best thing, you kind of mentioned it, right? I mean, going back to the UCF just real quickly, let's not forget that they entered that game as 14-point underdogs. And to go on the road as 2 touchdown underdogs and beat your opponent by, what's that, 3-4 scores is really unheard of, especially on the other side when you have a coach in Gus Malzahn who has coached the national championship appearance team, somebody who's well respected, in the space. So that was a huge win. And then again, going back to it, that morning, UCF had the second best odds of winning the Big 12 heading into that game. And obviously, as you mentioned, now it's looking like Colorado is kind of overtaking their spot. But yeah, if you look at the rest of the schedule, right, I mentioned that they get Kansas State at home out of the bye, which is a massive game, You get Arizona a week after that, which is another big opportunity. You get Cincinnati, a winnable game. You get Texas Tech on the road, which is a winnable game. And then you get Utah and Oklahoma State both at home at Folsom Field, which with the road game at Kansas sandwich in between those. So again, this is really shaking out to be a really favorable schedule, for the Buffs. Again, they had to take care of business through 5 weeks, and they've pretty much done that. You ask anybody before the season, heading into the bye week, you're 4-1, you'll take that up 10 times out of 10. And now the whole, everything they want is still in front of them, with knock on wood, really good health going for them on both sides of the ball. Again, you coming into a bye week, you can rest up and get a couple guys back, but things are shaping up really well for the Bucs. I mean, they have to feel confident. And again, just talking to, Coach Livingston and Pat Shurmur today at weekly presser, this isn't a complacent group. This isn't a group that is just resting on its laurels. They all realize that there's still a lot of room for improvement, and they're going to have to play better ball to reach the heights that they want to reach. But again, Saturday was, as you mentioned, the best win of the Deion Sanders era, the most complete win of the Deion Sanders era, and it came at a really good time. So it's going to be fascinating to see coming out of the bye, what this team continues to look like and how they continue to evolve.
Yeah, I think to kind of hit on your point before we move on, if Colorado could stay, I don't know if they're going to be able to play a complete game like that every game, because obviously we live in a world of imperfection. But if they could be somewhere around that where the offense and the defense are both clicking at the same times, they're not making costly special teams errors, that's how they get into Big 12 contention. I would say right now, I view them as a team who can contend, but are they a team that will contend? I don't know yet, because I need to see them do this again, right? They did it.
On that. But I just want to just interject here for a second. The thing that kind of gives me the biggest optimism about this team is defensively, right? Again, I mentioned the second half dominance. If this trend continues and you're not allowing opponents to, score more than 7 points in the second half of games, and Shedeur Sanders is your quarterback, you're going to have a shot in pretty much every game, assuming the game isn't out of hand at halftime like it kind of was against Nebraska. So again, assuming you don't get blown out and you don't come out completely unprepared in the first half of games, your defense is going to give you a chance in every single game. And Shedeur Sanders throwing to Travis Hunter is going to give you a chance in every single game. So again, I expect most of these games down the stretch to be close. But when you have a defense playing the way it is, and you have a quarterback receiver combo the way Colorado does, you're gonna feel good about every close game, every game that you play the rest of the way here.
Yeah, I think they just have to sustain it, which at this point, I'm seeing videos of Deion Sanders yelling at Shedeur at practice, being like, hey, this ain't it. Like, you specifically, this ain't it.
I didn't see that. Is that today, yesterday?
There was a video I saw today. He yelled at Shedeur and was like, this ain't it from you. One of those type deals. So honestly, I like what I see from Colorado. I think if they play at the level, because I know people are already worked up about my prediction. It went from me predicting them to lose to UCF.
You picked UCF, didn't you, sir?
I was wrong, and guess what? It won't be the first. It wasn't the first time. Won't be the last. That's how it goes. But I was saying, if they could channel that performance all the time, that's how they'll contend, right? If you have an offense that can light it up, which outside of the first possession, which I literally tweeted, I was like, again, really? This is how we're starting games? Like, they may as well just defer every time and let the other team start with the ball, because I feel like they don't do much on offense in their first possession. But you can, if Colorado is clicking on offense and defensively, once Robert Livingston sees what they're doing, we'll shut them down in the second half. Like, that's difficult. And honestly, look at the Big 12 right now. And outside of Kansas State, which I don't even know if I trust their offense that much, but I would say they have the best offense right now. Who in this conference is going to be able to put up points in a hurry in the second half if they're down against Colorado?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see one.
I don't have an answer for that. Yeah.
Like maybe Utah with Cam Rising, but again, Cam Rising has been out for, I think it's 3 weeks now.
And nobody really knows what his status is, when his return is likely.
So Colorado, just keep this up, right? Hold on to this feeling and don't get overly confident, right? I think this is a moment that Coach Prime and his staff have sort of been preparing for, because they knew success was coming. And now they have to teach their team how to deal with success, especially after a big win like that. Speaking of success, Travis Hunter seems well on his way to being in New York City when things are all said and done. But will he be the one hosting the Heisman Trophy? I think he should be. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Roy, or ROY. If you aren't familiar, let me tell you about them. For starters, they are a new platform that lets fans make a contribution directly to their favorite athletes. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. This week, I've selected Travis Hunter as my Roy Player of the Week, because obviously you have the diving interception You have a near historic offensive performance. He came up just 11 yards short of extending his 100-yard receiving game streak. I'm giving Travis Hunter $100 on Roy. So if you were impressed as we were with his performance on Saturday, you could show him some love too. Just hop on Roy and throw in a few bucks. If everyone pitches in just $10, it adds up faster for Travis Hunter. So you have the chance to show your appreciation for Travis Hunter and his standout performance this week, as well as what he'll continue to bring to the program. Get off the sidelines and get into the NIL game with Roy. Or you could support your players that change the game at Roy. It's up to you. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're a few subscribers away from 6,000. Let's get there. We're oh so close. Let's talk about the Heisman, Scott. I talked about it yesterday a little bit. I gave everyone a Google definition of it. The Heisman Trophy is awarded to the best player in college football. Now, the voter definition of it over the past forever is the best quarterback on one of the best teams in college football. Dating back to 2013, I think it is. Only Heisman Trophy winners that weren't quarterbacks. Devontae Smith and Derrick Henry. So if you don't play quarterback, you have to be a position player at Alabama. It's kind of the criteria that it's been, which Ryan Williams, maybe he's the next one. Who knows? That guy's a freak. But if you go over to our sponsors over at FanDuel right now, Travis Hunter currently has the second best odds to win the Heisman. He's behind Jalen Milroe, who kind of led a 2-game victory against Georgia. Like at first it was a blowout, and then all of a sudden he pioneered a comeback against Georgia. So I understand why he's the favorite. Then it's Travis Hunter at plus 500, tied with Cameron Ward from Miami at plus 500. And then Ashton Jeanty, from Boise State, the running back, is plus 1,000. And then it drops off to Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. So like I said, it should be given to the best player available, best player in college football, and I think that's Travis Hunter. He does it both on offense, does it both on defense. Scott, do you have faith in the voters to not mess this up? If Travis Hunter obviously performs at this level. No faith?
No, I don't. And obviously, I want to be clear that I completely agree with you that Travis Hunter is obviously the best player in college football and obviously more than deserving of being a unanimous Heisman Trophy Award winner if such a thing exists. But I just still don't feel that the voters are going to give this man the respect that he deserves when it's all said and done at the end of 12 weeks or so of college football. Again, go back to last week. Travis Hunter, before the UCF game, had the 8th best odds of winning the Heisman Trophy. And obviously that skyrocketed, since then after his UCF performance. You mentioned now he's, second or third best odds, depending on what book you're looking at. But it feels to me that he's going to have to do more and go above and beyond just to be viewed as the true Heisman Trophy winner. And maybe he will, right? Because he continues to prove everybody wrong at every turn. And he continues to pretty much pull rabbits out of hats with some of the things that he's able to do, both defensively and as a receiver. But again, I just feel like at this point, I feel like the trend of a quarterback winning the Heisman Trophy Award is going to continue, right or wrong. I think I look at Jalen Milroe's performance on Saturday against Georgia. I mean, I don't know how many yards he finished with, but I know he ran for over 100, threw for damn near 300. You mentioned Ashton JT, the things that he's doing, at Boise State at a Group of 5 program. I mean, his numbers are literal video game numbers through 4 games. And I think I read too that he sat the second half of one of the games earlier this season too.
He's almost at 900 yards with like 3.5 game played which
is just ridiculous. And obviously Cam Ward is up there too. I mean, he had pretty much a Heisman moment again on Saturday. And if Miami continues to win, it continues to look like a top 5-10 team in the country. I think he's going to be a popular vote as well for the Heisman. And I also want to throw in somebody who hasn't really been talked about as well, but Nico Iamaleava, right? The Tennessee quarterback. As long as they stay undefeated and as long as they continue to be a high-powered offense led by that passing game, I think he's not a popular name right now, but I think at the season's end, he could be in it as well in the thick of things. But again, Travis Hunter is the best player in college football. He should undoubtedly be the Heisman Trophy favorite. But again, after what we saw through 5 weeks, after what we saw on Saturday, he's not even the favorite right now.
Yeah,
he's not even the favorite right now, which just tells me that, again, these Heisman voters are going to come up with any reason to point at to not give Travis Hunter the Heisman Trophy Award, whether they can say, well, Colorado didn't get to, 9-10 wins, although it looks like they still maybe might be able to do that, but
very good chance.
Right. Again, whether they say that, Travis didn't contribute to winning enough, again, they're going to come up with something, in my opinion, in my estimation. I hope I'm wrong, right? Because nothing would make me happier than to see that man earn the award that he certainly deserves. But something about those Heisman voters, man, I don't trust them, man. I don't trust them, especially since we don't really know who they are, right? They're faceless, nameless people for the most part, right? Yeah. And for that reason, I don't trust it. A lot of people have disdain for Coach Prime and this Colorado program, what's happening in Boulder. And I feel like that kind of hatred, if you will, could manifest itself in Travis Hunter being cheated out of the Heisman Trophy Award, which would be a travesty. But I'm telling y'all now, don't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points there. And just to kind of put an emphasis on how hard it is for non-quarterbacks to win the award, Ashton Genty, 82 carries for 845 yards, 13 touchdowns, 10.3 yards per carry. Through basically 3.5 games for the Boise State Broncos. He'll probably help lead them to a playoff appearance, assuming that nothing goes wrong there. But yeah, I think for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman, and I think Scott would agree with this, and feel free to jump in, Scott, he really needs signature performances like every week, and it has to be on both sides of the ball. Like, it can't just be like he put up 150 yards receiving and a 2-touchdown game. Like, he needs 150 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, and a dive.
And of course, fumble. Like, I completely agree with you, bro. That's exactly how I feel. Like, I feel like he's going to have to make splash plays on both sides of the ball every single week. And I feel like if he has one off game where he doesn't go for 100 yards or he doesn't make a splash play defensively, his odds are going to drop in the Heisman Trophy rating, and it'll be hard for him to kind of climb that mountain back up. And again, I just, that's how I envision it happening. And again, maybe he will continue to make mind-blowing plays on both sides of the ball every single week. And it'll come to a point where it's like, you literally can't not give this man the Heisman Trophy. But again, I think that he's going to have to do, like you said, something special every single week. In the moment, the game that he maybe has an off game, I think it'll cost him.
Yeah, the moment he has an off game, I think I might have better Heisman odds. Like, that's just how it feels with how they're treating him. Like, he's doing things we've never seen done before, and he's yet to be the top Heisman favorite. So I can't even imagine. Like, imagine if he posts like a 5-yard, 55 catch game with like 3 tackles, no picks though. Yeah. Just like,
and they lose, so to speak, right?
He would plummet. It would, exactly. That would be the end of the Travis Hunter hype.
And I just think too, with these quarterbacks having the ball in their hand every single play, they just have more opportunities to be seen, to make plays, to create yardage, move their offense down the field. And I feel like after 8 or so weeks of that, it's just going to be too much for Travis to kind of, as special as he is, as special as what is he doing, as what he's doing is. I just feel like it'll eventually be overshadowed by, another quarterback on a winning team.
Yeah, I think Pat Shermer, you got to keep scheming him open. Don't force it, because then I think that's when it gets too obvious. But like, it's been happening within the game plan, which I think is the special part. So Travis Hunter could very realistically, at worst, I think he should be in New York. I don't know if he'll win the award, but I think he should be standing up there or sitting up there with whoever else is up there winning the award, if it's not him. But yeah, we both think Travis Hunter for Heisman is a legit possibility. Comment below if you think it's a possibility, because we do. Why wouldn't you? When we come back, we're going to be talking about how important this bye week is for Colorado and what they need to do to, quote unquote, win the bye week. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Go check them out. Go get in on the action. The mysterious Scott Procter is back. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making us your first listen today. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, give us 5 stars, and share it with your mom, your dog, your friend. I don't care. Just share it with someone. Scott, they have a bye week this week. And let's just put it as bluntly as possible. They're going into the bye week in a much better position than they were last year. Last year's bye week, for those that don't remember, they go up 29-0 against Stanford, right? Shedeur Sanders' Instagram account, whether it was scheduled or not, is posting merch drops. And then they go out and lose in overtime, double overtime to Stanford, who I think went on to win 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 4 games at most. I think it was 3. And that just kind of signaled the beginning of the end for Colorado because they went on to lose every game after that. And it was just a disaster. And I talked about it all off season. I said their mental toughness wasn't there. Now they're going into the bye week with a 4-1 record off a huge win. How do they win the bye week, Scott? How do they sort of build off their momentum while also not getting too excited?
Yeah, man, continue to evolve, right? Continue to go against maybe tendencies. And that's something that Pat Shurmur talked about today at his weekly presser, right? He said that, he's always looking at tendencies, and he broke some last week against UCF, and that's part of the reason that they were successful offensively. And you kind of mentioned it, Kevin, at the top, right, where UCF's defensive coordinator said after the game Saturday that Colorado had been predominantly 10 personnel team with 4 wide receivers, 0 tight ends on the field. But on Saturday in the upset win over UCF, they were in 11 personnel, just 3 receivers, 1 tight end, about 67% of the time. So they completely flipped the script on what they do offensively. And obviously it worked out in their favor. They ran the ball much more effectively. I think they had 128 rushing yards, a season high on about 29 carries, averaging about 4.5 yards per attempt. Having that tight end on the field, which was Savell Smalls on Saturday, which was huge. I mean, getting that extra blocker both in the run game and in pass protection to give Shador a little bit extra time to find his targets down the field was really the biggest difference in that game, or at least the biggest difference in that offense on Saturday as opposed to the previous few weeks. So just continuing to find ways to find new wrinkles and to go against tendencies and to not be predictable, on both sides of the ball. It goes for both sides of the ball, right? Defensively as well. Obviously, we know that the book out on the Colorado defense, so to speak, is that they play a ton of man coverage, right? So I think it'll be imperative for Robert Livingston, and based on what he's shown us, I mean, I have no doubts that he's going to be able to execute kind of another really good game plan for Kansas State, to where you sprinkle in some more zone coverage and just to confuse, the young quarterback of Kansas State, Avery Johnson, who I'm a big fan of, man. He's really talented. I think he can evolve into one of the best quarterbacks in college football here soon. But, just finding a way to confuse him, give him different looks, obviously put pressure on him. That's something that was huge again on Saturday, right? Getting to the quarterback, getting to KJ Jefferson, actually getting him on the ground was also a big difference in that game. So they're going to have to, I think this bye week, right, is big on the coordinators, big on the coaching staff. How can you continue to not allow this team to be predictable on both sides of the ball, and how can you continue to try to outcoach the coaches on the opposing sideline? That's going to be huge because Kansas State is well coached, right? Coach Kleiman is one of the best college football coaches in the country, very experienced. So this coaching staff has another tall task on their hands, and I'm interested to see kind of what the game plan looks like for week 7 and against K-State.
Yeah, I think you hit everything on the head there. So I'm just going to add a couple more things. One, get healthy, right? This is a prime opportunity for guys like Deion Sanders to make the return. Chidozie Nwankwo, who he played well, but obviously he's been banged up, and all these guys who've been banged up, and especially you lose a couple players. You lose, at least we know, Trevor Woods, and I think it was Jeremiah Brown, if I'm not mistaken. They both opted to redshirt. So you lose a couple guys that way, and so you just need everyone to be ready if their name or number is called. And 2, you kind of have to – I think you have to channel this feeling of like, hey, we won this game. We were dominant. This was a complete performance. And throw it away, right? Throw it away in the sense of like, we did that, but that doesn't define us, so now we have to do it again. So that way eventually it will define us. That way we are a team that plays complete football, because that's how Colorado – gets into the Big 12 championship. And that's how they get into the college football playoff, because at the end of the day, if you win the Big 12, you're in the playoff, and Colorado is trending up. And now they just need to prove to themselves and everyone else. They don't really need to prove it to everyone else, I guess, but prove it to themselves that they have what it takes to sustain that performance. And I think the bye week is all about staying focused and getting healthy. So really, really big week ahead of them. Scott, I appreciate you for hopping on. Tell the people where they could find you before we depart.
Absolutely, man. Go shoot me a follow right down here at this handle below at Scott Procter _. And also follow my work at thecoloradoin.com. We got new content dropping damn near every day. If you follow Colorado football and you want to stay up to date on Coach Prime and the Buffs, you tripping, you tweaking if you don't follow me. So go ahead and do that.
Yes, sir. And you also need to make sure to like, subscribe, and follow to Locked On Buffs over here because we're here every single day. We got some awesome guests coming up. Dalton Wasserman from PFF is joining the show tomorrow to talk about why he views Colorado as a Big 12 contender. And we're just going to have so much great content moving forward. We got live post-game reactions. We got everything. We got hot takes, cold takes, wrong takes, apparently. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day. And I will see you guys tomorrow.